тебе дошлю. Ты его будешь оглядеть. Ну,
Okay, so hello, Alex.
hi.
So I wanted to start in a bit non-conventional way, so with a little bit, I think, difficult question. А так меня чует, да? Добре, все нормально. Так? But maybe we will outline the situation we are right now in the world. So Chantal Mouffe vocalized once an idea that our world has to be divided into several regions, which should not be tampered with by Western democracies. And so, in her view, an individual gets an attribution of the region, but at the same time, on the other hand, Trump's team ran 175,000 different ad variations, yes, on the day of the third presidential debate, testing them to adjust to specific individuals. So my question is, which is a crazy idea right now, being attributed to some generalized region, like in your case it would be an Eastern European, or being a profoundly studied, like up to private details of your private life, yes, individual in the political campaign, like for instance when a politician would view and target you as an anxious father or an angry introvert. So which is crazier for the modern world?
To be studied and I just want to clarify. What are the two options? One option is to be targeted like that, and another one is
so the first one is to be an individual but described and attributed to the whole region. For instance, he is an Eastern European, he's Islamic.
Okay, I see. Yeah, well, for me personally, personally, as I would say, it does not really matter, because I don't care much about how digital platforms or people who want to collect data about me online look at me. I'm not really interested in learning anything about this, really, as an individual, because for me, like, I mean, what's important for many people and important for many agencies, organizations, is the issue of privacy, or privacy. Sometimes they say privacy, and this issue is really much related to this question. And I think many people in our society, in Europe, in the world, they really worry about this issue when it comes to internet, when it comes to the use of their private data that is being used in order to target individuals online for different purposes. But I think actually it's not the majority of people, and I think the majority is really much. They really don't care much. Really, it is what demonstrated by many studies actually, that if people asked what do they think about their online privacy, what do they care about it, whether they take any measures in order to protect themselves online, or whether they think twice when they know that their private data are going to be stored somewhere, they say we don't care much. And I think it's me personally, and in general public, I think really it's not a big issue for them.
Who will win if Chantal Mouffe would run a political advertising campaign and the Trump's team?
Which move?
Chantal Mouffe's
What is this?
team. I mean, the researcher Chantal Mouffe. Yeah, so she proposed that idea of basically describing, dividing the world into several regions and describing an individual of that region with an attribution, like he belongs to that region. But Trump's approach to that is is contrast to that. So he doesn't see it as a region. He sees an angry father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he targets him with
Yeah.
a very specific ad that
Yeah, yeah.
actually is very influencing and effective.
Yeah, of course.
And
That's why it's
and-
influential.
Yes, and well, so the question is whether Move's approach, well, like saying that you're an Eastern European.
No, it doesn't work. What is Eastern
Will
European?
it work in the modern world?
No, I don't think so. It's not really a good idea if it comes to political campaigning, for instance. It's where Trump's works. Maybe I don't know if you're working for different purpose. I can't really think of any purpose for which you can use this sort of thing. Maybe if you're a European Commission and you want to unite Europeans into one entity, you perhaps would like to target them as Europeans, maybe.
But can you?
Well, of course you can, but whether it would be whether it's productive or not, I believe it's another question. It's not productive for the purposes of the particular campaign. Trump was very successful in this targeting because he knew that we are modern individuals and perhaps also postmodern subjects. Some people would say like this, which means that we have multiple identities, right? And in order to understand us better, we perhaps need to unpack those identities. And one of the way of unpacking them is just revealing particular instances that would distinguish you from other individuals. And it seems to be a very successful way of working with people.
Yeah, I see. Okay, and um, so what in whole strikes you the most in this whole thing of using big data in politics? What's so special about it right now?
I think it's a really new technology. It's worth it. It's something been developing really recently. Well, if you take data in general, people have been storing and using data for ages, right? But recently, technologies advanced so much, so that would mean that we could proceed and store much more data digitally than years ago, which would mean that companies that own those facilities to store and produce data, they now can collect this data and use them. And it's good because they develop new technologies for us. They learn about us more, and then they can provide us with better solutions for our everyday life. And we can see it every day as well. Um it's not just private companies. It's also, I don't know, it's municipalities, for instance, in the large cities that collect data of how we travel around on public transport, and then use this data to create better, suitable public network for us. But when it comes to political world, it becomes a bit more problematic because we don't really know who and how can use this data about us. And since much more people are now connected to the internet, those companies can store more and more data every day, and we don't really know how to regulate this process as well. This is another big issue because, well, I think before maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there was a belief in technologies that they can improve our lives significantly when it comes to social and political issues in all around the world, and it culminated, I think, in Arab Spring events when many people would say that specific political protest and change of the regimes were triggered by technologies as well, partly. Well, well, now I'm doing better. I need to correct myself. It's better to say the use of technologies triggered or contributed to the triggering very significant changes in the political world. Uh, but these days, I think uh, the trust and trust in technologies and sort of people's attitude towards technologies is changing, and it's changing quite rapidly towards negative side. Papers like this, like Guardian, they would publish a lot of articles every day these days, I think, that would criticize.
Even Wired magazine.
Even right, even right. You say, oh my God, even Forbes maybe. I don't know. I don't read it, but it seems to me that it's really changing now, and it's that's what strikes me. And I think that big data is one of the issues that change the attitude, because at some moment, elites and people like critical people or analytical or journalists or kind of all those people that try to analyze things, they kind of discover that technologies are not as predictable and are not as transparent as they would expect them to be when it comes to general to, to the proportion of their influence on our life. So the influence is so large and so huge, but the transparency and clarity is relatively comparably little. Yeah? We don't know much about how, for instance, this data being proceeded. We don't know. We don't even know how Facebook algorithms that builds your timeline works. We don't really know. Right? It's really interesting to know and learn it, and it also will be interesting to learn how does Facebook build this advertisement platform. It's component that precedes advertisement, because as any individual who uses Facebook, not just Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them can see advertisement, and this is main part of their profits, right? That's where their profits come from. In case of Facebook, 95% I think comes from just US market.
95%.
Yeah, I think so.
Ads.
Yes, yes. And it means, man, it's yeah, and we know that Facebook is one of the largest company in terms of capitalization, yeah, as well as Apple and other technology companies, which means that there are a lot of money behind this, and many people trust and believe that this model works, but we don't really know how it works. And when it comes to social issues, comes to political issues, people in Western democracies get used to the idea that their political processes are very well regulated, and they're very transparent. They can understand them easily. But when large political movements start using those technologies like Facebook, like Twitter, other platforms, and not just platforms, and advertisement in general, big data, when they start using big data, we don't really know, and society does not really know how they've been used, and particularly what, for instance, what was the advertisement, what was the ads being shown to particular people. Because, like, for instance, in UK, you can't see any political advertisement on TV, for instance, and in many European countries as well.
It's regulated.
It's regulated, and it's basically banned. You can't buy TV time as a political party during the election time. Why? Because TV is so influential, and so it used to be. Yeah? Used to be very influential and persuasive, that people understood that basically, if you can do this, if you can buy TV time, you can basically win elections by money, and that's it. You just actually you can win easily if you just collect a lot of money and raise a lot of money, enough money. And that's what actually happens in campaigning, political campaigning in US these days, where you can buy airtime, and it means that basically it's still like this, or used to be like this before Trump elections. Those who collect the largest fund, they perhaps had high chances to win because of TV advertisement. It was one of the largest thing.
So, has politics forever veered away from mass communication? How do you think?
Can you repeat?
Has politics
Yes.
forever veered away from mass communication, or is it happening that we are veering away from mass communication and getting into specialized?
I think it's still mass communication.
It's
still about masses, but we just learn how to unpack those masses into individuals.
Yeah, but so by mass communication, we would assume that one ad for a big amount of people.
Yeah.
So like a TV ad for both housewives and workers and blue collars and CEOs of corporations. So they used to receive one ad from TV.
Yeah.
That was mass communication. Are we veering away from that and going into more digital and leveraging all the facilities that it provides with specificization to the needs, to the demands, to the emotional state,
I see.
to the
Well, from if you define mass communication in the way you define it, yeah, definitely it is the process there. Well, But I believe actually that there was this process for a long time before media been trying to specialize according to the needs of the audience for years, for decades. It's always like this. You can see this newspaper, like Guardian Weekly, consists of not just of plain style articles. They are all different for different people. They have home section, they have finance section, they have criminal section, and it's normally they've been read by different people.
But okay, but I've never been I've never been sent I've never got a newspaper especially tailored to my specific specific emotional let's say emotional current situation or
Yeah.
mood I
Yeah.
am right now
Yeah.
in this particular moment.
Yeah, of
you
course.
know?
Until you're not in
And
Harry
this-
Potter.
And this, yeah, and this was what Trump's campaign tried to do. So,
Oh yeah, well, yeah, true. Well, that's what digital technology definitely allow for. They do definitely allow for this kind of emotional. Yeah, your idea is good. Yeah, I like it.
so you don't envision actually politicians in the near future breaking with the traditional models. Of
No, I
campaigning.
don't think so.
They will.
You know what's interesting? For instance, you know that in UK, in United Kingdom, there were just elections recently, general elections, and in summer. And what happened surprised many people because um, everyone predicted that Conservatives going to win, and many people would say that Labour Party, they're losers. They people have no trust in them at the moment. No one, not so many people going to vote for them. But what happened? Just in 1 month of the campaign, Labour's attracted a lot of new voters, and a lot of people switched to them. And one of the reasons for this was, as 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 preliminary analytics say that analytics and preliminary study of this campaign says that Labour were much more successful in using Labour Party was much more successful in using digital media and advertisement and targeting audience, especially young audience, and not on Facebook. But this audience is on Instagram and other places, Snapchat. They were much more successful, and this was the first elections where people would say, and researchers would say, it was the first elections when digital media were used significantly to significant impact when it comes to the results of the elections. First time ever in the UK. So they have many other elections before, and never ever internet played such an important role as they played now. So you see, it's a long process, and it's still kind of going on even in very developed countries. When it comes to less developed, well, perhaps we won't witness any significant impact of these sort of things
Sorry.
in any time soon.
So, so you would say that in the in developed countries,
Yeah.
we are going to expect that the investment in digital tools
Yeah.
will only increase.
Yeah, it
And
seems
the
like
traditional models
of
probably
campaigning.
will be abandoned more and more, or
They will
would
be reduced. Yeah,
Reduced.
yeah.
Yeah.
Their use will
Okay.
be reduced definitely.
Um, so in the US, the laws regarding the release of personal data are more lax than in European
Yeah,
Union
yeah,
countries.
true.
Countries, yes, and but the thing is that actually leveraging data for advertising purposes is like really effective. So we've just discussed that, and like for instance in Kaczynski's study, who actually became the basis for the whole Cambridge Analytica thing.
Yeah.
So in his study, he provides evidence that just matching products or marketing messages to consumers' personality characteristics increases clicks to 64% and conversions to 1400, something like that. So it's actually absolutely effective. But Does it mean that political advertising in digital tools regarding the situation with Trump campaign should be somehow restricted and become less effective and more costly?
Mm. Yeah, well, yeah.
Should we compromise the effectiveness of that?
Compromise, you see. Well,
Because people.
I want to continue my previous thought.
Okay.
I just talking about Arab Spring, and Arab Spring was a good thing, right? But what happened 2016, I think, and what started happening recently in Putin's Russia, for instance, and other places where bad guys are in power, they discovered how to use internet, how to use big data. I think it was happening. Oh, ISIS. You don't need to go far away. ISIS is a big issue in the West, and ISIS is very good at targeting young people on Twitter.
They're harnessing that.
Yes, and it means that not just good guys now learn and know how to Google or how to use big data, but also bad guys. And we also need to find a way how to protect our societies from the influence of those bad guys. And for this reason, we should first think of, well, in countries where there is democracy, about democracy, about democratic elections, about the representation, about those important democratic institutions that have been developed for years. It should be the first priority. And then we should think of any kind of effectiveness.
And do you see any regulations coming up soon in this field?
Well, actually, in the UK there is a review of legislation when it comes to the elections, because they realize that everything can happen. We want and we need to know more. In US there is an investigation related. It's called so-called Russian inquiry by 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 someone called Mueller, who used to be the CIA director. Now he's the head of a special agency that deals with this inquiry, and they've been interviewing representatives of Facebook and Google, and there is a chance, and it's conducted also by the U.S. Congress, which means that perhaps since this legislative body is involved in this process, there is perhaps a possibility that as a result of those investigations, there will be some legislation proposals, both in the US and in Europe. And I really hope there will be some, but I hope they would not be very restrictive. It's not good, I think, for democracy as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, I should agree with you. So thank you, Ales.
That's it. Oh,
yeah,
great.
That's it. Yeah, that was my pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Супер. Що зробили? Ще так цікаво.